And away we go. Well, thank you everyone for joining with me this afternoon. My name is Bob Lang with explosiveoptions.net, and we do these webinars usually about once a month. This month we got two planned. We have this one today, and I'm happy to bring aboard this afternoon my good friends Jake and Dan from TrendSpider.com. They're going to be talking about their amazing product called the TrendSpider. I came across this not too long ago and started using it, and it became very addicting to the extent that I use it every single day. And I've shared it with some of the people in the chat room. So I thought, well, let's have a webinar and have these two guys talking about the great product and how the virtues of the TrendSpider and how you guys can use it in a very quick and efficient way to find good trade ideas, because that's what it's all about, right? So thank you to Jake and Dan for joining with me this afternoon. So we'll get started here. Just a quick couple of quick things. First of all, if you can't make it through the whole webinar today, we have it recorded, so no sweat. It'll be up on the website a little bit later on today. I'll be sending the recording over to Dan and Jake later as well too. So it'll be I'm hoping they'll be able to put it up on their website later on today or tomorrow. If you have questions on anything, go ahead and open up your questions box and go ahead and ask something. And if we see something that we can answer at the time, we'll go ahead and answer those questions for you. If not, then we'll probably hit those up at the end of the session. And then finally, if you have any issues or any audio or video problems seeing the webinar today, probably want to just back out, exit the webinar, and come back in. It should probably take care of any issues, any problems that you may have. Before we get started with Jake and Dan, we'll go ahead and talk about the markets here for a little bit, see what's going on, see if we can get a clear view of what we can expect down the road here. So we had, I'm going to go ahead and show you we had this little box pattern here from back in August, right? We had a nice run in June. We pulled up to highs back in, everybody hear me okay? It seems like there's a little bit of an audio problem. We had a nice little pop in June off of a down move here in, draw the trend line over here. This down move in, put that up here. In May, nice little pop up in June to July. We hit that, tagged that all-time high at about 30.27, 30.28. And I'm going to actually unmute Jake and Dan here.
Nope. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You may be able to show some of those levels easier with the horizontal ray.
With the horizontal ray over here? Okay, there we go. Yeah, so there we go. So I wanted to pop that 2800 in there. So basically, we had this little box area over here in August, right, for basically the whole month of August. And we were looking for either a breakout or a breakdown, and we got that breakout last week. And that was last Thursday, actually. And we broke out on really strong turnover. And that was tested a little bit on Tuesday here. And we can see that we didn't break the low here, which was about 29.60 or something like that, roughly. And the fact that we didn't break the low there, and when we shot up yesterday and then followed through a little bit today. Now, today's reading shows that we're a little bit extended, and, having gone up so much over the past 8 to 10 days, we could expect a little bit of a pullback, of course, being Friday tomorrow, not a whole heck of a lot going on, not a whole lot of economic data either. We had a little bit of excitement this morning with Mario Draghi talking about a little bit more QE coming in from the Eurozone, so that put a little bit of a bid underneath the markets. We pulled back a little bit towards the end of the day. And then, of course, we have options expiration coming up next week, which is generally pretty bullish historically for the September period. So, and then let's not forget we have the Fed meeting as well too. So we'll have to see what happens the next coming days. The market structure has been quite bullish over the past several days. We got into some positions over the past couple of days, today as well too, and taking some money off the table whenever we can, of course. So we have we've had some good opportunities to trade this market, to swing trade it. Over these past 3.5 weeks, it's been difficult to swing trade. Okay, when you're in a box like this, we get sharp moves up and down, and we can see some of the big red bars over here in the month of August, right here and right here. And these are tough days, right? I mean, and then because we didn't get a whole heck of a lot of follow through on those down sessions, right? We get one down day here, and we pop right back up, and we lose it all in the coming days. We get one big down session over here at the towards the that was at Friday in August 23rd, and then that was, I think the Dow was down 800 that day, and then we turn right back around in about 4 or 5 days. That's a distant memory, right? So it's difficult to trade the market unless you have some overnight risk. Now, who wants to have overnight risk when we have these gaps down and gaps up? You don't want to be short overnight. You don't want to be long overnight. And the opportunities have really not been there. And what I mean by that is you get these gap opens, gap up or gap down, and all the action was in the overnight, right? It's in the futures market. So that's not a playing field that I'm comfortable in playing. So you guys know if you've been in the chat room, I've been playing it really super light for the past couple of weeks, right? Got a little bit more involved this week because I feel like we had a little bit of an all clear. Now, was it too late in the game? I don't know. I don't think it was too late in the game, but the fact of the matter is we see opportunities when the environment is good. All right, when the environment is better, and if we don't see opportunities when there's a good environment, we step aside. Now let's take a look at let's see the volatility index here.
If you do the cash tag, yeah, VIX.
Hashtag.
There you go.
Thanks, Jake. So we saw a huge surge in VIX, of course, on the beginning of August, right? And then we've just been making lower highs and lower lows all the way down. We hit the 14 marker today. We closed at about 14, roughly 14.20 or so. Lowest level that we've seen. I'm sorry. 15.05 on the VIX futures, 14.22, lowest level we've seen in quite a while. So the market is showing a little bit of complacency here. So we wouldn't be surprised to see markets turn tail and come back around the other way to the downside a little bit. But remember, you know what? When volatility starts coming down here, the market turns into what? It turns into a stock pickers market, right? So it's not necessarily saying that everything is going to go down. You do have to have some protection on. And I know a lot of people have been wondering, hey, Bob, why are we buying so much protection? Well, because of days like this, when the volatility rises like this, when we hit certain levels in volatility, there were no more buyers left of markets, and all there are sellers. So it's especially when volatility is cheap like it is right now, 14%. It's not costing you much to buy spider puts, Q puts, DIA puts, and we're not necessarily playing for a down move. We're trying to play for some protection, right? So we're at or near an all-time high in the indices right now. We could hit those levels next week. We'll be in somewhat of an extreme maximum overbought level. So again, take some money off the table, play it light, have some protection on, have some cash available, because there's going to be some even more opportunities coming up, opening up, because the charts are starting to get quite a bit better. All right. Any questions on that at all? Okay. All right. Great. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the main part of the program over here. So my two friends, Jake and Dan, are with us today from TrendSpider.com, and Jake is going to do, like I said, the bulk of the talking about the platform here. And so I just a little bit of a history here. I found TrendSpider on these guys were tweeting stuff out, and so it caught my eye, and I decided to take a look at it and investigate it for myself. And if you know me, I'm always looking for quickness, from speed. We got to get our answers for what we're going to do very quickly. And I'm a chartist and I'm a technical guy. I've been doing it for many years, and it takes time to chart stuff. I've been doing it for a long time, so I can identify and recognize patterns pretty quickly, and I'm sure many of you can do that as well. But it takes time. If it takes you 10 or 15 minutes to put a chart pattern together and to figure out the story, that option trade could be over in 5 minutes. So you've gone 5 minutes too long before you're getting into that trade. What I've found with TrendSpider, it is an enormous time saver. And I again, if there's something that's going to save me time, that is going to give me an opportunity to shave that 10 or 15 minutes down to 5 minutes or even less before I can see a pattern and say, hey, yes, that's something I want to get into, I'll use it every single day of the week and twice on Sunday. So this is the sort of thing that really gets me excited. They've come up with a really great product over here, a really great charting service here that is constantly being improved, constantly being updated. Jake, I'll go ahead and let you take it away, and I'm going to hand the controls over to you, because I think you wanted to share your screen with everybody.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Let me make you the presenter.
Let's see, screen 2. Okay. All right. Can you see my screen?
I can. Yeah, I can. Say hello to everybody, Jake, and I'll tell you. I'll go ahead and mute myself, and if you want me to jump in there with you, I will jump in from time to time and chat with you.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everybody, for jumping in the webinar today and listening in, learning a little more about TrendSpider. Just to do a quick overview of TrendSpider, thank you so much for the intro there, Bob. We're, as Bob mentioned, a lot about time and saving time, and that's really what TrendSpider is about, is creating a software that helps you do technical analysis in a more efficient way. Not replacing your technical analysis, but helping you with some of those things that you can kind of have the computer automate, such as trend lines, fib levels, and I'll show how all these automation features work. But what I really wanted to do at first was highlight one of our newest features, which is completely unique to TrendSpider and gives users a very quick and easy way to see how volume and price action is interacting throughout a specific time period. So in this case, we're looking at IWM, and we've got a few different things on the chart here. So the first thing that I've got here is the anchored VWAP from this period that we started to move down from. So that is something that's available on the platform that's pretty unique. The fact that you can just right-click any different candle. So we'll do it, right-click, and create an anchored VWAP from Alpha Trend. So what you can do here is you can anchor the VWAP from certain areas. You can see here how nicely the price action respected this area. And then finally, we had a nice area of support here and then moved up. And you guys are probably looking at these candles thinking, what the heck are these? These are not regular candles. And these are what are called raindrop candles, which are volume-based candles. So you'll see here, if we split the screen and just pull up a regular hollow candle, we'll just look at this particular one right here, which is the one that we broke out through here as well as here. So in the September 10th candle on the hollow candle side of things, you can see we pulled back a little bit from the open and then closed much higher. And we really closed through this supply area, which acted as support, then resistance quite a few times, and then we finally broke through. But with a regular hollow candle, we can't see anything about the volume. Was this, obviously the buyers were definitely in control with the open being much higher than the close, but how do we know where those buyers were? Where was the volume flowing? And so this is why we have the raindrop chart and the raindrop in general. And what it is it's a way to visualize volume and price action without having to have necessarily go into the 5-minute or the 10-minute and look for where those volume blocks were. In a raindrop setting, and I'll just move back to the regular chart here, you can see, we'll just take a look at this one. You'll see here how we've got a left side and we've got a right side. And if you've used bar charts before, you can see that this area looks pretty much like a bar chart, but this squiggly area over it is very different. And that's what's actually the volume profile for the first half of the period and the second half of the period. So instead of this being the open bar and this the closed bar, this is actually the VWAP for the first half of the day, in this case, since we're on the daily candle. And then the second bar is the VWAP for the second half of the period. And you can see here, it's green because this bar is higher than this bar. The raindrop becomes red when the second half of the period's VWAP is lower than the first. And then you've got your blue raindrop when the VWAP for the first half and the second half of the period equal each other within about 2% margin of error. And so, you may be thinking, all right, this is interesting. How can I use this? And this IWM is a really cool example of how you can utilize these really well. So we had this area of supply that I was mentioning before. We found support, resistance, 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 and then resistance a few times before finally breaking out. And what you can see here on this raindrop is you can see when we did break out, there wasn't, during the first half of the day, there wasn't a ton of volume near the top of the range here. A lot of that volume was kind of accumulating in this supply zone that's been an area of accumulation and kind of resistance for quite a while. And then something interesting occurred during the second half of the day. You can see here this little chunk of volume is all focused at the top of the range. So you can see when we did break out of this area, buyers were definitely in control up here, showing all of this volume was focused near the top of the range. There was actually no volume profile at the bottom of the price range here. And you can see, and that because this is flat. If there was any type of volume near these price levels below during the second half of the period, you'd see a squiggly line here. However, you can see that that was all focused at the top, and then we had a really strong continuation in the last 2 days. So that's something that you can really utilize to see, all right, are buyers really in control? Is this a fake out? That type of thing. So an example of this on a trend line to show you guys kind of what a false breakout would look like. And this is back from October. And you'll see we had a breakout here. However, you can see that when we finally broke out through this line, there was barely any volume profile at this area. During the second half of the period, you can see that there was no volume buying the price here. All of that volume was buying at a lower price below the trend line, and then you had your continuation down. If you compare that to when we actually broke through the trend line here, you'll see that there's a lot of volume focused above this red line, and then we had the continuation up. So you can see during the split screen example, when I turn on the hollow candle, during this breakout, you couldn't really tell much on the hollow candle. All you could tell was there was a wick right here. In this particular candle, which is the same exact candle as this one, you can see that all of that volume was really focused above the trend line and was focused in this wick. So with just a regular candle, you can't necessarily see, what exactly is going on in this wick. All you can see is the volume bar at the bottom. And, that's not always going to tell you a whole lot. In this case, it just told us that there was a little higher than average volume here from the last couple of days. It didn't necessarily tell us where that volume was. With this, it tells us the volume was really focused at the top part of the day, especially during the second half of the day. So this is a completely new way to visualize.
Hey, Jake, I was just going to jump in there real quick. So this is really important, everybody. You know how I'm really focused in on the volume and volume profiling. What is really important here, what Jake is telling you here about where the volume is located. This is really taking technical analysis up to another higher power, another dimension. And this is just something I've never seen something like this together, interpreting this with candlesticks. I've seen volume profile before, but trying, to do that on a horizontal histogram versus the price, it's very, very difficult to see it unless you've been doing it for a long, long period of time. This is about as easy as I've ever seen it putting this together. And this is the sort of thing that, you line up. Sorry, Jake. You line up what the volume profile that he puts in there, and the odds favor continuation moves on this. So really, certainly hindsight's 2020 here, because you see the next bar is up big, and we went up three out of the next four bars before we corrected back down again. But it's so important what he's telling you here. And again, this is something that I haven't really seen elsewhere, and this is what's important. Go ahead, Jake.
This is a cool example too, to mention. Yeah, this actually just happened again yesterday, and so I know this is a big options trading community. So I did a paper trade yesterday. I'm not a huge options trader, but I did actually open an options account to play around again into the fall. And one thing that I did yesterday was I did a paper trade. And what I did here was I saw that the volume, same exact thing that we just talked about. You could see that there was a ton of volume focused above this trend line yesterday. And you could see it into the end of the day. And so what I did was I entered on a paper trade a 196 call for September 20th. And the reason was I didn't necessarily think we were going to get to 196, or I didn't necessarily want to trade it to that point. But what I thought was I definitely saw the volume accumulating above this line and figured we'd definitely have a follow through. And so I looked this morning. Initially, I think it was up about 50%, pulled back to about 30, and then hit over 100%. So this was, that was a rather short-term option to play, but it was just an example of being able to see, okay, I can capture that there's probably going to be another measured move here from this move because of how much volume is above this trend line, which has acted as resistance 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the fact that we saw that volume above the trend line was really indicative to me that there was definitely some interest for higher prices today and maybe even tomorrow. We'll see. The thing that's really cool, especially about today, is, this is just really nice that one of these formed during the presentation. We've got a blue raindrop forming here. So for bears, that may be something that's definitely worth looking at, because if you see here, when we were in a very similar position, we had a big move up here in June. We finally kind of topped out here with a blue raindrop and pulled back a little bit. So we've kind of had the same move. We've had a nice move up. We've had, this is almost 5% in about 15 trading days or so. And so, you know, when you've got a blue raindrop forming after that big of a measured move to the upside in such a short amount of time, there is a chance where you're definitely going to see some volatility. So the blue raindrop has been a very big indicator of volatility to come. It's not always necessarily directional volatility. There's been a lot of cases where you see a blue raindrop after a big move up, and then you see another move 3% up or more. So I'm not necessarily saying this is telling us we're going to drop, but the fact that we've moved up so much in the last, 2.5 weeks or so and have this blue raindrop that's formed, and notice we haven't had a blue raindrop form in, almost 3 months. So this blue raindrop is definitely a signal to keep in mind into the coming days. If I were to guess, just based on the move up, this area of resistance is now going to act as support, possibly below, if we do have that pullback. So that's just one thing I wanted to show about the raindrops. There are a lot of cool other features that I want to touch on here, especially even in this chart right here. So you can see here we've got this line with this purple area around it. And this is a really cool example of the sensitivity alerts that we have. And we also call them dynamic price alerts. But essentially what they are is it's the ability to look at a specific area. In this case, we were looking at this area which was support, resistance, 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 resistance. We broke through it and look exactly where we pulled back to before we moved to the upside. So the point here is when you see this price action, and I'm just going to switch it back to the hollow candle so people can kind of see exactly what happened here. Notice, and you're not going to see the alert here because the alert was on a raindrop chart, but just imagine that we have this purple area. Notice how the wick did not actually touch the line. It bounced right before we got to the line, which is such a classic thing to do, especially because everybody was looking at this line. This was just a really kind of the line of best fit for resistance right here for these 4 different times. So without necessarily having to know exactly when we hit this line, I was able to create an alert, and I'll just create an alert here to show you guys how to do it. You'll see what I have here. I have sensitivity that I can work with. And you'll see as I move this to the right or the left, the sensitivity is going to capture more or less price action. So if I move this all the way to the left, you'll see that this line does not have any purple area. And you'll see the alert fires when the price hits the selected line precisely. Well, sometimes we don't want to know when it's going to hit exactly that line because the market's not perfect. So what we can do here is we can add that sensitivity, and you'll see now the alert is going to fire within 52 cents of the selected line. And when we switch this to the raindrop, you'll see here that I got an alert whenever the 10-minute candle closed in this area. So I didn't necessarily have to wait for the daily candle to close for me to get this alert. All I needed to do was wait for the 10-minute candle to close in this area, and that's when would have gotten the alert. And so it's important because if we went and created an alert, you can choose your different confirmation candles. Notice right now we're on the daily candle for the confirmation candle. Well, what if we want to maybe scale into a position when we got close to that area, and maybe it's scaling into a swing position? It doesn't necessarily have to be a day trade, but you want to know whenever the 5-minute candle gets anywhere within this purple area, that's when you want the alert to your to your phone or your email. Not when the daily candle's already closed. At that point, you've already missed out on some of the move. So with the confirmation candle, you can choose at what time frame you want to be alerted. For those that are trading a little more intraday, you'll definitely want to use a confirmation candle at a lower time period. For those that may be position trading or swing trading, having that confirmation candle on a longer term time frame may work better for you. You can choose the alert name. In this case, this was previous support, previous resistance, now support. And we can, the really cool thing about these as well, when you're usually creating a price alert on another platform, you don't have the ability to say, all right, tell me when the price did this. The only thing it's going to tell you is when the price touched it. What we have the ability to do is say, all right, well, I only want to know if the price is going to break through this line. I don't want to know if it touches that price. I want to know if the actual candle breaks through the area or touches the area or bounces at the area. So you're able to define how you want the price action to behave during this alert. And that's something that's really powerful, especially when, price doesn't always do exactly what we want. Sometimes we need to know, all right, I need to know when it broke through that area. I don't care if it necessarily touched that area. I need to see an actual close below it. And that's what this is for. So now I've created the alert, and you can see how it's shown on the chart here. And, if we did pull back all the way down to here, I'd get an alert. I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. So that's an example of using the sensitivity alerts on Trendlines. The thing is, you can use this on any type of line. So that's something I want to mention as well. Let's delete all of these different rays on the chart, and we'll start from a completely clear screen. So this is kind of what you'll see TrendSpider as with all of the different features, indicators, whatever you're looking at, turned off. So when we first look at a chart, and this is the SPY, the first thing we want to see is, okay, what are the main trends? What are kind of some of the areas that price is respecting? So generally you have to go through, all right, well, who knows? Maybe it's here, maybe it's here. But the thing is, I don't necessarily know how mathematically significant this line is. What I can do with the trends button, when I turn this on, you can see that the system finds all of these trend lines automatically. And so without me having to think too deeply or add any of my bias into the chart, if I had a long position in SPY, I can see right here exactly what these main lines are being found through these preferences. So for example, this is not just a FinViz model where, hey, these are the 3 lines that we've got and that's it. You can change these up, and you can have the system look at the price action differently and then apply that across how the system's looking at your chart. So in this case, I just changed the analysis type from original to enhanced. That's going to make the system look for candlesticks that are closer together. The drawing input, I'm going to have the system draw the trend lines from body to body instead of wick to wick. And I'm going to have the system respect anytime that there's a gap. So the price cannot, the trend line cannot be drawn through that. So you'll see here, the price action just, or not the price action, the trend lines just changed. And now you're kind of seeing different lines here based on the trend preferences. So these are very flexible. This isn't just, these are the lines and that's it. There's a ton of different ways you can have the system look for different areas to watch for. Now, the really cool thing about this is these are only the lines that the system has made quote unquote most relevant. So you'll see here on the back end, all of these different colored lines are based on different formulas. And these formulas are based on different variables that make a trend line strong or weak. So the number of points on the trend line, the number of hits on a trend line, the number of peaks on a trend line, all of these things that make a trend line, we've got these variables, we put them into a formula, and then the formula ranks trend lines based on how relevant they are. So if we go here, these are all of the trend lines that the system has currently found based on the settings that we're in right now. So let's say that, there's a trend line that the system didn't find in its most relevant mode, but I want to lock it in here. I can just double click, it's locked in. I go back to most relevant, and then you can see that this line is locked in. And then I can go through, and let's say I want to delete some of these lines. I can hold down the shift key, and I can start deleting some of these lines that I don't find as relevant as I would. So now I've quickly cleaned up the chart. I'm able to really kind of have a mathematical perspective on some of these trend lines and actually see, okay, these are looking at consistent criteria. And then you can utilize these trend lines across the entire spectrum of stocks you're looking at. So if you want to look at the broad markets, you just literally go to your watch list, If we want to look at, S&P 500, I can go through each chart and you can see all of the trend lines are already drawn. I don't have to draw any of them. The system's doing it for me, and I can switch through all of these different areas without necessarily having to think about price action at all. So it's a really efficient tool for you to kind of complement your technical analysis. You can always go in, turn off the trends mode, draw your own trend lines, and then you can say, okay, well, these trend lines are what I've found. Let's turn on the trends and see if there's any other obvious lines I've missed. Okay, yeah, there is an obvious area that we've broken down through. So this would be an area to definitely watch above that I may have not looked at if I was just looking at, this falling wedge rather than the entire picture that we just broke down through this larger ascending wedge right here. So it's a way to be a second set of eyes for you, kind of like a spell check for technical analysis. So that is how you can utilize the automation features on the trend lines. You can do this with Fibonacci areas as well. Notice how I just clicked auto fib and the fib level was just drawn on the chart. The fibs are a function of whatever trend settings you're in. So if you change this, let's say to enhanced, this will actually find a different measured move, and you can see the trend lines also changed. So when I turn off the trend lines, you can see now with the enhanced mode, it's capturing this very small measured move rather than the bigger one that we had for original. Any questions so far before I get too far ahead of myself? Questions
so far, yeah, Jake. So far, no questions yet. I think you just completely bowled everybody over with your great presentation so far.
Thank you.
Let me ask everybody if they don't mind putting something in the questions box. Are you finding the TrendSpider pretty useful? I mean, pretty informational and relevant, or just inspirational, maybe, or what? Just type in a yes or a no, or no, you don't like it, or yes, you find it amazing and revolutionary here, and so forth. So if you guys could just do that for me for a couple moments here, that would be great. I see one of our guys in the room, Dick, said, Jake, he said, volume profile does not give you the time, and he says this is a game changer.
Awesome. Yes. No, it definitely is. It's a big time saver for sure.
So
let me go back to SPY.
A couple of people have already said it's amazing already, and
one thing I want to touch on that gives a little bit of a different perspective. You mentioned that we were trading in this this box, right? In pretty much the entire month of August. And, a lot of people sometimes are like, okay, well, what is creating this box? What is making this level here? And something that's really unique to the platform is the ability to overlay multiple time frames. So this was a cool example in August when I was looking at the price action. You can see here when I turn on these two moving averages, I'm a big fan of the EMA 50 and the SMA 20. And when we started to break down here, we quickly broke down through the SMA 20, and then we've bounced right at the EMA 50. And then we pretty much gapped down the next day and gapped down the next day after that. And, it's like, okay, well, a lot of the time, if you have your whatever time frame you're looking at, if you're looking at the 5 minute and the 5 minute breaks down, you generally want to take more of a top down approach. So you say, okay, what does the 10 minute look like? Or what does the 30 minute look like? Well, in order to do that, you have to split your screen and you have to look at two different time frames. What I can do with TrendSpider is I can turn on MTFA, and you'll see here that it will daily versus none. Well, I can go daily versus weekly or daily versus monthly. And you'll see here, when I go to the weekly, I start to overlay the EMA 50 from the weekly and the SMA 20 from the weekly. And you'll see here how once we broke down through these two areas, the next area was the SMA 20 that acted as support, but this is from the weekly chart. We broke down again, and you can see how nicely the EMA 50 from the weekly held as support here. So this is kind of a cool example of being able to consolidate your chart down and not necessarily have to have a ton of different time frames open. You can just have one time frame open and see how that longer term indicator or trend line is interacting with the shorter term price action. So that's the EMA 50 and the SMA 20. Let's say that you want to overlay maybe the monthly Bollinger Bands on the daily price action. You can see right here, oh, look what we hit today. Literally exactly the top of the monthly Bollinger Band here. And so you'll see that, this has been a pretty intense area for us in the past, and we've had some decent moves to the downside after that. So now, without me having to open up the weekly chart at all, I can see now that the daily is really having some trouble at the top of the upper band here from the monthly chart. So just another really cool way that you can make things more efficient and not necessarily have to have a ton of different charts open at once. One other thing. All right, this is going to be interesting because let's do Netflix. Netflix is one that's really interesting here. And let me clear the chart out a little bit.
Always a favorite of ours, Jake. So you'll have quite a few people interested in looking at this one.
All right, perfect. So I'm just going to remove all this. This is kind of all noise. But what we have here is we've got Netflix, and I'm just going to get rid of all this, and we've got a blank chart. With a typical chart, you can see here we've got our hollow candles, and there's no way to really determine quickly where there's going to be volatile areas. And remember, we talked a little bit about the blue raindrop being a volatile kind of signal in the market. So what you can do here is, let's pull up the raindrop. So, if you didn't take my word for it, you may go, okay, well, maybe he's full of it. How do I know that these raindrops show volatility? Well, it's really cool because with TrendSpider, you can just go to the strategy tester. You can actually go and test these raindrops out and see how they've performed in the past. So in this case, I want to test a daily raindrop doji. That's what we call these blue raindrops. And I want to test it and see what the return or the move is after 10 candles once this is formed. So I can go and test this, and I can see the mean trade return is 1.49% after 10 candles. And that's with 12 positions being analyzed over the last year of data. And so what I can do is I can actually see on the chart every single time this blue raindrop is formed, we can see exactly where the back test started. It started right here on July 3rd of 2018. Here's a blue raindrop. We've got a blue raindrop kind of forming here at this little peak. And what happens? 11.9% move down within 10 candles. The next raindrop forms. You've got a blue raindrop and you've got a huge move down. Oops. You've got a 9+% move down in 7 bars. And then this is all within 10 days. And then you've got a reversal and a move up 5% from that low. And so this isn't always going to tell you if it's going to move up or down. What the blue raindrop is telling you that there's going to be some type of volatility coming. So if you do a lot of straddles or strangles where you're just trying to bet on the volatility rather than direction, this is something to definitely keep an eye for whenever these start to form. Okay, maybe it's time to start looking for a volatile position that I can take where I'm taking advantage of any type of volatility.
Hey, Jake, yep. Can I ask you a question? So
yes.
Am I right to assume that looking at the right-hand side of the chart where we're at currently right now, that volatility is a little bit more compressed, is a little less volatility right now than it was during the August period that you were showing us?
Exactly. And the thing is, this is something that's very interesting. I've seen blue raindrops start their move literally right afterwards. But then I've also seen blue raindrops take their sweet time, and it can be 20 candles after. So in this case, we've got a blue raindrop that formed on the 28th, and we have literally done nothing. But what's really important to notice here is look at the rounded bottom that's really forming here. So the fact that we're kind of forming this rounded bottom with the blue raindrop, near this rounded bottom, that would be something for me to say, okay, maybe we're really getting close to a bottom here. Maybe buyers are definitely still, going to come in and make this happen. Especially we have a gap above. So for me, I'm not an advisor licensed to, say buy or sell, but just looking at the raindrop and seeing that we haven't had that move yet, but we have had, a lot of kind of consolidation in this area, that may be indicative of maybe a breakout coming. And Netflix has really been one of those that hasn't participated much in the last month and a half. And so, there may be some rotation back into this guy. We'll just have to see. But 100%, this is a blue raindrop that formed that we have not seen much movement on yet, which is interesting because if you look back, it's really hard to find one where you don't have at least a few percent move to the upside or downside.
Hey, Jake, take a look at, if you don't mind, showing the same chart profile with Apple, because that one really took off to the upside yesterday. I'm wondering if it had that same, it was indicative of that blue raindrop. There you go, right there, right?
So you've got a blue raindrop here that formed on the 22nd of August, and then you had a really strong move to the downside after. So, and the thing is, this can be kind of an after the fact thing. It's like, okay, well, there's already a blue raindrop, and I can't do anything now because it's at the end of the day. Well, that's not true because especially in the options world, things can move very, very quickly. Just because your option that you wanted to buy yesterday is up 30%, that doesn't mean it can't rip a lot higher than that. So sometimes this is an after the facts type thing. So you are going to see the blue raindrops once the day is over because it takes the entire day for this raindrop to form. But like we just saw on Netflix, these things can take a few days to form, or the actual move to happen. And so that's where you can really utilize the play then, where you're kind of still waiting on it.
So the raindrop, the color raindrop, it wouldn't, if you put this on like an hourly chart, you wouldn't see that, right?
You'd be able to see a raindrop on the hourly chart. So these are rendered by the
there we go,
the 1 minute candle.
Right.
So you can see here, Apple, we're on the hourly. So all of this volume profile is being taken from the 1 minute chart. So the lowest we can go down is the 10 minute right now, just so you can actually see, 10 1 minute volume periods on the 10 minute candle. Here we're looking at, a little more liquidity here since we're on the 1 hour. And you can see, during the last hour of trading, you can see a lot of that volume was focused at the bottom of the range, and this volume actually created new lows. So it's definitely something that can be used on a shorter time frame than the daily. And this is another great example, right? We've got a blue raindrop on the 1 hour, and within 46 hours, you got a 5.4% move.
Wow.
So
you guys see that? You could have been in there on Tuesday, when that raindrop hit, and that was your trigger to get long.
And especially because it was basing too, right? You had kind of this stair stepper where you moved up, you had consolidation, blue raindrop, and another rip.
Right.
So there are times where the blue raindrops are going to have a little more of a predictable quality, if you will. So in this case, this is an example of the daily raindrop on XLF. And you can see here, and I'll show you guys what these blue raindrops are doing here in a second. But this was back in May when we really took a big move down. I'll draw this this falling wedge type looking thing here. And you can see here that there's blue raindrops that formed on both the resistance on the falling wedge and support on the falling wedge. And you can see here, we connected this point to this point, extended it. You got a blue raindrop that forms right after. And if we measure this move, you had literally, a 1.8% move or so within 6 bars on XLF, which for the options play can be a nice little move in 5 or 6 days. Same thing with the other end of this, right? We moved down, we bottomed out at the support on the falling wedge, blue raindrop, and you got your breakout. So the blue raindrop, when you've got it on a very distinct area of support or resistance, whether that's like on a moving average, here's an example of Bitcoin before we really took off. A blue raindrop formed right on the EMA 50, I think it was. So right before we moved up huge, you can see this little blue raindrop forming. And it formed kind of right on the EMA 50 here, and then you had a big move to the upside. So it's not always going to be, an end all be all. This is definitely something that you use in conjunction with everything else you're using. It's there to kind of be a different way to look at volume and price action. You can see here with Bitcoin especially, we have not had a blue raindrop since May of 2019. So the next time a blue raindrop forms, you better believe that I'm going to be looking for some type of move coming. Notice here we had a blue raindrop, big move down, but before that, we had a lot of big moves up right afterwards. And so it's really a way to just kind of have another way to confirm what you're seeing or not seeing, and that's how we use it.
Hey Jake, can you throw up? Don't throw up. Can you toss in there Google GOGL? Dick was asking about that one. He said he would like to see it on a daily with it.
Wow. Beautiful. Yep. So this is a great example in a couple different ways. So I'm glad you asked about this one. So a couple things here. This is something that I've been doing a lot lately. This is called anchoring the VWAP. So you can right click and anchor the VWAP. I mentioned it on the first chart with IWM. But what I've noticed here is if you anchor the VWAP from the blue candles, and the anchored VWAP is something that was created by Brian Shannon from Alpha Trends, and we were able to implement it in here. And one of the things with the anchored VWAP is where do you anchor it from? And since there's not a lot of blue raindrops on the chart, these are really interesting areas to anchor the VWAP from. You can see I anchored the VWAP here. I anchored it here for the last 2 raindrops that formed. And then I anchored it here since this was a big gap up. And you can see how beautifully this acted as resistance for quite some time. We gapped above it, and then it acted as perfect support before really taking off the last couple days. One of the things about the raindrops that's really cool here that you can see, especially yesterday, you could see a lot of that volume starting to aggregate at the top of the range here for the day. And then we had that nice continuation up, and it almost looks like a hot air balloon type move where, a lot of your demand is rising. A lot of that demand is turning into volume at the top of the range here. And you can see all of that accumulation occurring at the top of the day's range. So this is definitely something I look for, is this kind of balloon structure where it's just kind of like you see a balloon kind of taking off into the sky, showing that buyers are definitely in control. So this is definitely a way where you can utilize them from a volume flow perspective.
So we had a couple of really good questions here. So a couple of people, Jake, were asking about the SPY and the QQQ. First of all, Bill asks, do the blue raindrops complete for SPY and Q at the end of the normal cash session?
Yes.
Or went up, or 15 minutes after, I guess. Well, he's talking about the options, because I mean, Bill, the SPY and the Qs, the underlying still trade after 15 minutes. If you're talking about the option, but I guess they do. And then Curtis was asking Jake about showing the SPY with the raindrop.
Yep. So here's SPY. You can see a really cool example here. Same thing yesterday. Wasn't necessarily what I'd call balloon, but you can see during the second half of the period yesterday, all of that volume was focused at the top of the range. Then we've got our move up. Same thing today, though. You can see a lot of that volume is kind of focused near the top of the range into the second half of the day. So we'll just have to see if that can continue up. We have had quite a big move to the upside, but you can see here that when we do have these types of moves on SPY, they generally come in fours. So you can see here we kind of bottomed out, big move up, bottomed out, big move up. I don't want to say we bottomed out here, but we've been at this area so long, it's just created like a springboard for us. And so when we finally did break to the upside, we had the blue raindrop, and now we've got a decent move to the upside. So based on this blue raindrop, this may continue. I'm thinking, I'm just going to be completely contrarian to probably what everyone's thinking for tomorrow, but I'm thinking we've got one more candle here to complete this fourth move, and then things are definitely going to get very overheated. But until then, looking at the raindrop, you see a lot of that volume still aggregating near the top of the range today.
Jake, Sam mentioned that he thought multiple time frames analysis was huge, and then he asked if there was if this is available in a tablet at the App Store or something like that.
It is not, unfortunately, at the moment. We are working on getting it out to different mediums in the future when we kind of create a mobile app and that type of thing. But right now, it's completely web-based and on the computer is the best way it's going to work.
Okay. A couple other people said it was just an amazing product. I mean, I don't have to tell you that, but it's already, you know how I feel about it. So Dick asked another question here. Said, have you back tested heavy volume on the second half of the day and the next day's percentage change?
Yes. So I haven't back tested it on the actual back tester because we just don't have the ability to do that yet. You can back test a couple different ones, like so you've got for candlesticks, we've got dojis, flips. So the flips are when you've got, and I'll show you guys this. And another cool thing about the platform is you can actually show these things on the chart. So if I want to look for these flips, let's go to raindrop, flip, double flip, and it will show me on the chart where these have happened. So these are kind of areas where you can see that it's definitely in any case not 100%. If you've got volume in the top half of the day, that does not necessarily mean anything. It's more of a way that you're going to use any other candlestick, right? So if you have a hammer candle, you can have technically a hammer anywhere based on just the physical kind of structure of a hammer. A hammer is really, though, only important when you're on a very strong support level or something like that. So same thing here. If you can see that we're already in a pretty strong uptrend here, and you start to see these volume ticks coming up in the second half of the day near the top of the range, that's when you can see that we do have the continuation. But it's not always the case. You can see here we had the same thing and we had a slight pullback. So, but at the same time, this is also when we were still very much stuck in this range that was just absolutely horrible to trade in. And so once we finally broke out, you can see now it's starting to kind of catch on when we do have this volume at the top of the range during the second half. We do have continuation. Same thing here. We did break out, had our blue raindrop, but it's more of a way to just complement what you're already looking at through your typical tools that you're using or indicators. It's just a way to kind of enhance what you're seeing.
Hey Jake. So putting your your futuristic goggles on, would you be looking for if you're looking for a bit of a pullback? You said we might stretch out tomorrow or maybe Monday and then pull back a little bit. Would you be looking for that blue raindrop to occur again? And if so, kind of in what area you want it? Probably, so, I would assume you'd want it to be higher than that one that occurred 6 bars ago, right?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of, or a big believer, if you will, of gaps needing to fill before, really
Yeah,
something continuing. So
me too.
if we were going to kind of have a blue raindrop, ideally I'd want to see a blue raindrop in this gap area, showing maybe some consolidation after a pullback, and then maybe that forming a base for the next leg. But um, it's hard to say. I mean, if we do the MTFA, the multi-time frame analysis again, we are right at that Bollinger Band right now, or at least close to it. On the SPY, this is actually, we're not there yet. I was thinking we were. So here you can see this would exactly be the area I think we melt up to, like the 305 area. And I really think at this point it's just going to be a melt up. There's not really going to be a fundamental reason. It's just because there's been so many people kind of short. They're just going to kind of get capitulated. And sorry that my dog's making a bunch of noise, but you can see here that would be my area above, and I can set an alert. This is expired, so I need to make another one, but I can go in and I'll say, I don't necessarily want the price action to go to exactly to this line. I just want to know whenever we're about $1 from this line, whenever we touch it, I want to be alerted, and I want it to let me know on the 4-hour candle. Alerts created. So now whenever the 4-hour candle closes in this area, I'll know. And the reason that we can't go to a lower time period in the alert is because we're on the monthly. So it's just the way that the alert system works. But so yeah, whenever the 4-hour candle closes here, I'll know because I'll get an alert. So if I were to guess where we melted up to, I would definitely say around the upper band on the monthly here.
Hey, Jake, I had a question for you. Somebody had. Have you put together any tutorials on the website for people to
Yes.
basic tutorials where and they would find it on they would obviously find that on the website, right?
Yep, you can go to blog. So if you go to just trendspider.com, you'll see blog here. We've got a user guide. So if you go to categories and go to user guide, these are all the different user guides we have. They're a mix of different webinars we've done with other people that help us kind of promote the product and use the product and how they're using it. So for example, Brian Shannon was on last weekend talking about the anchored VWAP. Chris Bretcher, who's another big user of the platform, he uses the heat maps. He came on and talked about the heat maps. So everybody that comes on, we will put them in the user guide just so people can go and see how other people are using the platform as well. But we actually have step-by-step instructions on a lot of this stuff as well. That is usually going to be on the software update. So anytime we have an update, we'll have like a step-by-step kind of ways how you can get to that area. We've got a GIF here, and you can see essentially that it will tell you step by step how to do it.
That's so easy. And again,
so that's all under blog.
As I told everybody earlier, it's all about saving time and I mean, I would say that conservatively you could spend 6 to 8 hours and become an expert at TrendSpider, and just going over it maybe on a weekend, and then having everything, going through the tutorials and just experimenting with all the different tools and everything like that. And I'm absolutely sure that everybody would get enormous benefit out of this, um, out of the platform. It's great.
Yeah, and there's a ton of other things to utilize. One of my favorite things, as well as the multi-factor alerts. One of the big issues with a lot of platforms is if you want to create some type of logic. So let's say that we were looking at the MACD and the RSI and maybe the percent range. These are just some of the momentum indicators I like to use. You'll see here that with any other platform, if I wanted to create logic to let me know or alert me anytime these indicators start to break down, I'm going to have to know how to actually, code that language in or that logic into some language. So PineScript or Python. a lot of people, if they're just getting to know trading, a lot of them don't know how to, code in a secondary language to create logic. What we've done is create the ability to visually represent that without having to turn it into code. So if I go to create alert, multi-factor alert, I can go here and type in lower indicator breakdown. I'll have it expire in, let's say, 45 days. And I can start creating parameters similar to what I did with the back tester. So my condition, or my first condition at least, would be, we're on the daily. So I pick my time frame, daily. We're looking for the indicator, which is the RSI, which is RSI 14, which is right here. And I want to know if we start to break down. So I want to know if the RSI breaks down below 50. So I'll say cross down below the constant level of 50. I also want to know when the daily Williams percent range starts to break down, let's say below -30. So same thing, indicator, Williams percent range has crossed down below the constant level of -30. And then my last one would be the MACD. And notice with the MACD, the entire time that we've been moving up since late August, you can tell that the MACD fast, i.e. the blue line here, has not decreased. It's just gone straight up. So one thing that I want to know for a potential momentum pullback is I want to see when the fast starts to decrease. So I can go in and say daily indicator MACD fast has decreased. And so whenever that blue starts to move down, I'll know that it's happened because I'll get the alert. So another way to make your analysis more efficient, not only by not having to know any coding language, but also having the system watch for these different criteria for you without you having to look daily and say, okay, have these things happen? The system will alert you exactly when these happen. Now, let's say that these all are bearish criteria and you only want to know when one of them happens. You can change this from all of the following. So that means when all three of these occur, you'll get alerted. Or you can do any of the following. So that means when any of these three conditions occur or become true, you'll get alerted and you'll know it's time to get back to the screen. So all in all, a very cool way to just be a complement to what you're doing by hand. Lastly, let's say that you wanted to maybe test this out before making an alert. You can always go to test this strategy, test it as an entry or an exit condition, and actually back test and see how this has performed in the past. I'm not sure if these particular conditions have occurred in the past. It looks like they have 22 times over the last year, and you can see the mean trade return is 0.27%. So if you wanted to, you could actually go and show this on the chart, and you can see each time that's happened on the chart here.
Hey Jake.
So
I know we're running late. I know it's running for you, but can you just ask one more question for Dick over here? He said, could you share a little bit more detail on? Hold on 1 second here. Sorry. A little bit more detail on the auto fibs.
Yes. So let me turn this off. Oops, turn that on. Auto fibs, particular ticker that we want to look at?
What do you want to look at, Dick? Let me know any particular stock.
Just do Tesla.
He said, just basically adjusting timeframes. How do you do it? Yeah, throw in any name. That's fine.
Wow, man, Tesla has ripped. Holy mackerel. Talk about a classic gap fill. I mean, I didn't even realize this. I just saw this, but I mean, talk about gaps always filling a lot of the time. This was a gap from earnings in July that we just filled today, essentially. So that's pretty cool. But sorry for my complete lack of attention there. Let's go to a different one. Let's do maybe Delta Airlines. I don't know. So there's a few different ways that you can a few different ways that you can do the fibs, right? So you can turn on auto fib and the system will draw the fib based on these preferences. Let's say that you want to look for a longer term fib. So you can actually turn on multi-time frame analysis, and you can actually have, let me turn off the Bollinger Band here. You can actually have the weekly Fibonacci level overlaid as well. So you can see here, this is the daily fib level that we're tracking, and then this is the weekly fib level that the system is finding based on these preferences. So remember, every time that we change one of these inputs, let's say from wick to body, that's going to change how the system's looking at the price action, because now it's connecting the weekly bodies rather than the wicks. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And same thing with the fibs. You can go in, you can create an alert at the fib level. You can make it as sensitive or as precise as you'd like, and you can pick those triggers for price action.
I really like the sensitivity tool. That's a great tool. That's just something you don't see very often anywhere. You know, it's certainly.
Well, at the end of the day, you know, like I was saying, how often does price touch an exact perfect point? I mean, sometimes it does, but a lot of the time you've got a very wide area that should probably be drawn with more of a highlighter than a pencil. And so that's kind of what you're given here. You're kind of given that highlighter, the end of the pencil turned into a highlighter by creating this kind of area rather than just a little precise area. And that's something that really helps me a lot of the time. I mean, BYND was a cool example of this last week, where we had this area. Same thing, right? We did not actually touch this trend line. Let me turn off the fibs here. We didn't actually touch this support line, and notice that it was a decent area of support. And every single time that we've touched this time in the past, you know, I connected this wick to this wick area, but notice that if we just create more of a zone, these wicks did not actually ever hit the exact line. So being able to create this highlighter type approach gives you a much better zone to draw your areas from and be alerted at. Any other questions that have come in, Bob?
Jake, somebody asked if you can write your own custom indicators.
Not yet. I'm not, and I don't know, you know, when that will be coming. That's a big one. I know a lot of people like to kind of write their own scripts. One of the cool things about the multi-factor alerts is you can kind of create your own quote unquote algorithm by creating a bunch of different rules, but to actually create a script and turn it into an indicator, a single indicator, we don't have that yet.
Okay. And Dick is asking about symmetry. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to see if this is something he can possibly substitute Fibonacci Queen for, and symmetry. And I suspect he's probably asking about timing too. I'm not sure if that's available here, but
the timing is not. But you know, if you did want to draw your own fib levels, you can go in and, you know, manually do all of this. And the cool thing is you can actually go and change your fib levels if you want to look at other fib levels other than the ones that we have default. You can add in your own ones.
So he said he can calculate his own symmetry, but it was just wondering about if this can be done to save time. Do you know anything about that?
I don't think we're there yet on that side of it for the fibs, at least.
Well, all I know is that when I first started using this, Jake, the advancement of all the different enhancements that you've put out there is just simply remarkable. I mean, every single day, every single week, it seems there's something new and something different and something higher level that I've been able to get to. So all these things, you know, if it's not there now, it's going to be there very, very soon in the future, especially if it's something that's you know, the public has demand for. I suspect exactly. it'll be there, right?
Exactly. If there's enough people asking for it, we realize that it's something that, you know, that's valuable to a lot of people. We definitely prioritize it.
Yeah. So anyway, before we wrap up here, Jake, can you let everybody show everybody on the website where to go to sign up? Because I suspect you're going to get some people signing up today, and what they can do to get a bit of a discount on.
Absolutely. So if you go to TrendSpider.com and you go to pricing, this is where you'll be able to check out the different pricing plans that we have. We do have a 7-day free trial for any of these pricing plans. So, this isn't something that you got to sign up for right away and pay and to use it. We definitely want to make sure that you guys find value in it before paying for it. We do extend trials as well. If you do need some extra time, we understand that sometimes 7 days just may not be enough, especially if something comes up. So please let us know if you would like to extend that. We're happy to do that. But these are all the different types of plans you can choose from. And these are all the different features that come with each of the different plans. So as you mentioned, Bob, there's a ton of things coming. Especially in the hopefully middle part of next year with integrating brokerage data. So you'll actually be able to use your broker data in the platform instead of using just our data that we have. Our data is real time, but some people, want to use their own data and make the trades exactly through the chart that they're looking at. And we're definitely going to make that happen next year. So a ton of things coming. We also are working on innovating a few new ways to look at things, look at the back tester, look at volume and price action on top of the raindrops. So definitely a ton of things to look for. If you feel that it's just not there yet, or there's not an indicator or something that we don't have yet, you can always get on our mailing list. So sign up for email updates. And anytime that we've got updates, you can put in your email there and you'll get an alert that something new has come on the platform.
Or even also, Jake, I think you're one of the few people who's extremely open-minded and willing to listen. I mean, if somebody's got something, if they're on your list, or if they do subscribe, to drop you an email and say, "Hey, Jake, maybe you should add this feature or something like that." And
yep.
I would bet it wouldn't be very long before that's up.
Yeah, we've got a little tool within the platform that you can suggest a new indicator, a new chart pattern. So we're very open to new ideas and creating new patterns to look at and new indicators to have on the platform. We do plan on having the cloud on soon, as well as a few other things like Elliott waves. So the Ikamochu cloud, or I always mess up how you say that, but the cloud will be up. You use it quite often, right?
I like the Ichimoku cloud. Yeah, it's one of my favorite tools and so forth. But
I didn't even realize it was a big thing. Everyone, it seems like we get a request almost every day for that, and we are really looking forward to having that on the platform soon. Yeah. Elliott waves and all that good stuff. So, ton of things coming. If you guys do want to, you decide after the 7-day free trial that you'd like to purchase one of the different plans, you can use BLANG 20, which just sounds like Blang 20. That's 20% off for 12 months. So that means if you sign up for a monthly, you'll get 20% off each month for 12 months. If you sign up for a yearly annual subscription, you'll get 20% off that annual plan. So definitely a good opportunity to take advantage of if you do, find yourself in the market for a new type of platform that helps you do some of these things a little more efficiently. You may want to check us out, and we are happy to answer any questions you have through hello@trendspider.com, or you can just reach out on Twitter, and we're happy to answer your questions there too.
Hey, Jake. So if I'm looking at the, let's say the annual, right? It's $924. See, would they get 20% off of that $924?
Yep.
So that's about $760. You guys pay attention to that. I mean, that's a huge savings. I mean, for $760, it's What is it? What is the monthly normal price?
About 120. So, doing the annual subscription with the 20% off would definitely be saving you quite a bit of money.
Oh my God. That's like 50% off, right? I mean, so, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's $60 a month. so it's almost half the price. I mean, yeah. So I mean, guys, this is something that I use all the time. I think if you're kind of nerdy like I am, and you like this sort of stuff, and take a deep dive into charting and technical analysis, this is the way to go. This is what you could try. And again, um, listen, I have a subscription. I've had it for years for stockcharts.com, and frankly, I don't know why I have it anymore, because the TrendSpider gives me so much more value and utility to use for charting. So and technical analysis. Again, it's another dimension of it's the next dimension of charting and trading and technicals. And again, for me, it's all about the speed, Jake. And you said it earlier many times. Quickness. You can snap your fingers and all of a sudden it just pops out right at you, and it's like, yeah, okay, I got to go. I mean, if I can get an answer by looking at the TrendSpider chart in 2 minutes that this is a trade I want to get on, again, I can get on it right away, and I don't have to miss an opportunity. That's so valuable.
Yeah, well, it's very valuable just to have us on and allow us to share the product with everybody. And we hope you guys found some of this interesting and educational. And we do webinars all the time. If you do want to learn a little more about blue raindrops or any type of raindrop, we do webinars quite often, focusing heavily on those. But we also have blogs and different articles on how these work. Just go to the blog part on the screen right here, and you'll be able to check out anything you'd like. You can always search for exactly what you're looking for too. So if you want to look for, indicators, any blog post that's got indicators in it will then pull up. So definitely very easy to find what you're looking for.
Thanks, Jake. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. I will have a copy of the webinar up on the website a little bit later on tonight. It'll also be up in the chat room. And Jake, I'll be putting it out to you and then sending it out on social media as well too. So anybody who missed it today will get an opportunity to listen to the great information they gave out tonight. So
well, thank you so much for having me, and I hope to have you on one of our webinars soon. And everyone have a great Friday and a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you guys in the chat room tomorrow. Take care. Bye.
Bye.